Socialization of a Nation, Part 4. He that withhold corn, the people shall curse him, but blessing be upon the head of them that sell it. Once ye that gates the rights of race nations and keep the truth shall enter. And he that helped every one of his neighbors, every one said to his brother, be good of courage. So the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith to have he that smoothed the hammer and he that smote the anvil, saying that is ready for the soldering, as soldering, and he that fastened with the nails that should not be moved. The resource of earth being heritage of the people should not be monopolized by the few and the disadvantaged. The Social Service Commission of the Northern Baptist Convention, he that escapes the decay of citizenship must ensure that what presently to build up a new social order, he that based on the fighting based on fraternity, not on the competitive struggle that means the barrel of life. He deliberately planned a cooperation of the production and distribution for the benefit of all practices. All participate by the hand or by brain, not by utmost possible inequity of the riches, by a systematic approach toward healthy equality and material circumstances for every person born in the world. Draft report of the general policy reconstruction of the British Labour Party. God said, I'm tired of kings, I'm suffering them no more. Up to my ear each morning brings me the outrage of the poor. Socialization of the nation. The nation today faces great new tasks and judgment. He has been fallen, and world's secret things brought to light, and hidden effects of society revealed. Inadequacy policy programs in the nation is shown. It is needed that national policy is suggested, and the struggle of the nations today as we find the hope of new social order. The nation will be in the same as it was before, return of the status of quota ante, and the possible changes coming up when the most prepare them for them. These changes shall reaction regain and hold the control of the power industrial life of the nation. If the trouble ahead of the friction, strife, and rebellion shall we all things drift, trust that they will adjust themselves. We need them to remember moral progresses and not automatic things that grow better than just fast, as far as them to see better and strive for it, to allow things to drift and invite into the disaster. This only is one course upon, therefore, the most understanding changes of the right and necessary. We must have the intelligent conceptual laws of social and national life. We must unite the people on behalf of the social justice democratic process. Only a few illustrations of the inadequacy of the old policy can be given. Only a barrier outline of new policy can set up forth the failure of old individualism. It appears that one thing that we have been neglectful and wasteful of human resources. We have intended the project developing natural resources of the nation, which have done the unparalleled rate, but in these ways we have neglected higher values and has been wasteful of the valuable assets, the lives given to us. We have built our society, developed an industry with little regard for the health, happiness, and welfare of the people. It appears that the industrial process, regardless of welfare of people and the large life of the nation, industrial has been controlled in its own managers. Usually few men, and with immediate object was profit. Coal has been mined with little concern of welfare of the today. People, the resources narrow the supplies of the oil have exploited the individual days of profit regarding the coming of the generation. Individual corporations gain control of the nation's resources and develop their own enrichment with concern of their rights of people. Men of the have been manipulated by the railroad of country and gambling devices and practiced stock jobbing in the disguise of highway robbery. Industries have interstate little regard of life and welfare for workers. That has worn out the men and the women, and before the time, and then thrown them aside so that they were junk. It has worked spirit and hope out of the men that he left devoid of the internal values. If it appears that fear that further the special privilege industrial autocracy has been exploited, people have maligned influences upon the nation. Because the control of the industry fall into the few hands, these are able to determine the destiny of millions of men. They can say how much coal shall be mined, how much wage war mined shall receive for this toil, and how much the family shall pay for fuel. They decided that they shall be the price of crude oil, how much of the people shall pay their electric power. The same is true of the reference to the transportation and the trade. Few men control the railroads, express companies, and are able to make the unmakeable communities and states. By degrees to certain combinations gain control of grain elevators, slaughterhouses, and are able to force down the price of by the price or force upon the price paid by the consumer. By the combination of the power of the part of the railroad storage houses, and few people have the heavy toil of people's foods. Because between the product producers and consumers, certain interests of the combination, fixed prices and controlled people's necessities. Everyone knows the price of staple commodities of life, and no relation whether the cost of the marketing them, placing them upon the market. The food selfish profiteers and are to force down the prices to producer almost down to drive them out of business. They are able to price the consumer to the virtually famine rates. They have used the power to enrich themselves out of the necessity of the people. Their evil has special patent in the early stages of the World War. During this past year have been marketed an increase in the cost of living. The war began with what do we find particular every group in the land uses the war as a plea of raising the price of everything they could control. The farmer raised the price of the grain and insisted having the share of the general increased. The miller and the baker increased their profits in an impossible degree. The manufacturers, steelmakers and makers of paper charged all traffic would repair. Coal operators occasioned to force up the price of gold. Men went to the strike and crippled and traded and hampered the government. And it appeared that all the groups and classes of men ready to take advantage for the nation's needs to raise the prices they pleased. In some cases there was scarcity of labor and goods due to the war and other causes. But in most cases, monopolists simply took advantage of the people and charged whatever they might exact. Few people become millionaires almost overnight. Some corporations were able to show that the profits of 300% of the cost of living into almost prohibitive figure. The most distress fell upon the millions of the family. Working men can disconnect, demand a share of the profits. Social unrest increased among the people, and murmurs to the revolt were heard everywhere. They were so notable that the noble exceptions of all life, the noble exemptions along all the line, the exemptions served rather than general attitude. And so we found our individual corporations growing enormously rich and out of the greatest calamity of the race. They have allowed self-interest to determine attitude and conduct. These individualistic doctrine is negative aspect. At least it leads to the reign of capitalism into industry and self-interest in trade. And find with the world veritable day of judgment, testing the works of men, nation, the revealing of the sins, one of the defects of the other. The evidence of the old individual has ruin in it and produces natural fruit. Each person was looking out for himself, and few were living with a common good. Every group in the class was intent upon its own advantage and indifferent with the general welfare. And it became evident that the Americans whole have been living in the pioneer conditions, which each section looking out they itself little bit sense of the whole business conducted by the slipshod of the wasteful. And they was little coordinated with the forces in unity of effort. The church were divided into 250 denominations, where ineffective clearly were revealed an unorganized people with abundant energy and lofty patriotism without coordinated forces of social discipline and will. The socialization of the nation. The war was revealed that some of the defects of the nation suggested the potent remedy in the stress of the strain of the war, and became necessary for the nation to change its policy to take control of the nation's resources. The government was compelled to take over the railroads and the steel mills, to regulate trade and fixed prices, to limited profits and determination income. And compelled, as signed of their task, and established a stern discipline in countries in our own, no less than the war has been profoundly modified. Old economic systems have been introduced, far-reaching innovations, far-reaching innovations The new policy method stated the control national discipline, which would once have been regarded as intolerable infringements of the rights of the employers and the worker, have accepted without protest of all parties. 10 years ago, no one could have imagined such changes in the possible generation. In the few-year crowded and eventful life of the general gathered the results of a century economic evolution. Some of these changes, no doubt, in temporary, provisional, they dedicated necessity and accepted the understanding that they were temporary. Nevertheless, they became the changes that proved beneficent and necessary, that they must not be allowed to pass. Many of the permanent and must not become the part of the settled policy of the nation. The old pre-war order has passed away forever and will have come to a new world order. And all nations demonstrated the value of social control, the necessity of national discipline. In the past, many of the people have individualists that have been feared and control. They opposed the public ownership and management of the resources, production, distribution, transportation of the ground. That private management was most efficient and progressive. But the war challenged all this and revealed the weakness and inadequacy and ineffectiveness in the cost line of the individual organization or business. When the governments of Great Britain and the United States obliged to take over the transportation, communication, and to assume the full control of the industry trade, the simple fact that the government were compelled to do this in the order to get things done. The old individualistic managements were provided, disorganized, and efficient. The organization were found with full waste, friction, and official personnel extravagance. Their operations were not correlated. Socialist needs were remorsefully subordinate to dividends, to extent with the probability will not be disclosed until the war was won, but which certainly with the remorsefully disclosed with the strife at the end of the world turns the problem reconstruction, individual enterprise, and the big industry wasteful and incompetent, as many as bawling socialists ever proclaimed as a selfishly devoted profiteering. And too early of the day for anyone that indicated the changes of the coming to the frames of the policy must be adopted. The nation have gained sense of the direction of national policy and given an illustration of the meaning of the value of socialization. Every consideration of the right expenditure was justified in the action wartime. In peace, private interest must be yielded in the public guide in its stake, and every person must hold his property. In the life of social trust, and we accept that the social obligation society must adopt the policy to secure the largest good of the policy of the secure the largest good of the whole people. In behalf of the common welfare society, the control and nature of this resource regulated today, fixed prices requiring services, limit income, determining and building and operation, discourage please automobile, regulated food supplies, and all this we had affirmated the principles of the eminent domain of sole stewardship for those that have been vindicated in the rights of social control and nation of discipline. And true that we have not been worked out of the principles in all their bearings. We do not know what the rights imply the matters of the future to accept work in the detail, and enough to present the affirm the principles to know that their application of the lies weigh down the progress security. He is a fool, and who supposes that the nation relapses the old order will resume life as it was left when the war began. The world today in the swing of one of the mildest movements of all time, nothing less than the revolution and the progress destined to change the life of the nation, structure, and society. This war is an enfranchisement in many areas of political, social, economic. Personnel will slain, never again, and it will can oppression of monopoly and justice be unchallenged. The spirit of the selfishness and greed that leads the men to the corner of food supplies to grow rich out of the needs of others to seek their own interest in neglect and common welfare, but be slain forever. The sacredness of the life, of the right of the child to be well born and well nurtured, and the right of every life to fair opportunity in society, equity in the national heritage must affirm and secure the door, the fuller life of all must keep open, and living wage to every worker must be secured, rights of the voice the concern of his life must be guaranteed to each. The job distribution products of the industry become a part of the nation's programs. Industries must be conducted not for profits but for life. People may come to their own enjoy with their belongings to the resources of either they are the heritage of the people that must be exploited, but the few the disadvantage of the many. The resource of the earth must be held in the trust that the people and every child must receive equivalent to equity in the form of education and opportunity. We entered into the war to oppose hypocrisy and to save government for the people to make the world safe democracy. We do not believe in kings autocrats. We do not believe people that are safe in hands. We do not know that people are not safe in their hands. We abolish political kings. We must not allow money kings. We repudiate the medieval baron, but we must not accept the coal baron. We say that the government is not safe in the hands of the hereditary or aristocrats, but we must say that the people welfare is not safe in the hands of the industrial heredity aristocrats. A return of the old conditions is impossible. Impossible from the point of view and changes that have to come. The impossible of the point of view of the new demands upon society. There's no therefore to talking about the restoration of status quo, quote, ante. The discussion is a return of this genus and its confusion and trouble the way of the forward that makes new policy which shall guide the men in new social advantage. 3. A new national policy. What the nation needs is at all times, without thought of the comprehensive plan of the social reconstruction, will guarantee freedom and equity, justice for all. It must ensure national order of the government on the democratic principles which shall unify the forces of the nation. Develop a national discipline expressed for the cooperation of all sake of all in the program and the things of the vital. There must be a change in the spirit and the policy of the nation. The old individual taught the individual in supreme in his interest in final law. It taught that the rule of the game is each of himself and the devil in the hindmost. The sanctified the game of the grab and the rule of the self-interest. Under the sway of the doctrine, we have thought of life as a magnifying grab game in which each was expected to take everything in sight and shut out his neighbor. And men have been provincial spirit in the immortality politics. They thought of their street, they thought of their town, their business, their party, and their view to their own. Every question is in their light. They have insisted representatives, city councils, legislators, and Congress shall secure operations of their district in the reference of the general welfare. They have upheld the party of the policy to sake their own business and disadvantages. They have been taking and granted various selfish policies and would add themselves up into the national good. They have assumed the political right to consent and insisted in a balance of expeditions. National must have a new mind of the heart and conscience. The most of the developed national spirit, sacrifice and service is the most gain the sense of the whole and learned of the thought of the common life of every policy program. And with it, by its standards, the land is full of the who would die, and the nation who would yet swear the tax Dodge jury service. We need the national convention that is to seek, but the one advantage, but the profit of many. We must realize the good of the good citizens lies in the commonwealth today. Today, one may lose his own crown of the sainthood while he is practicing his citizenship. Men must learn to hunger, thirst, and the righteousness of the just city franchises. They must seek the kingdom of God, justice, and the fair system of taxation. They must follow the helper of the truth and insisting in the public service corporation shall good services issue no water stock. They may play the good Samaritan, but securing the honest and efficient police department. They may love the neighbors by guaranteeing the pure air black community playgrounds for the children. They might bear the cross after the master fighting the graft in the city, speculation in the public franchises, and by upholding righteousness on popular causes. They may prove the quality of the citizenship of the kingdom of God with the practice of citizenship in their community. All the demands and imaginations beyond the sea common, the willingness, subordinate self-interest, the cooperate for the common life. It demands the creation of the good social of conscience that shall honor the moral ideal and be quick in search men for those through the fire of God. It demands development of the comprehensive national discipline and our ability to do teamwork, willingness to find one of the good in the common welfare with the one out of the mind. Spiritually inhabited democracy will sham and nation will be full of confusion. With the growth of the mind and the spirit of the habit, national policy will change the political instruction into the produce of fruit. The course of the nation during the war has answered the label human nature and given some of the hope of the future. It has been assumed that many are selfish and that men of the larger ability will not be further their better efforts unless that is motivated by the hope of the money reward. Society must not therefore society must not interfere, therefore human nature must leave the door open for an individual initiative, but to organize the nation ensures the victory. Hundreds of nations are able to surround largest salaries devoted to the talents of the reserve without pay. The secret is here that it was the service of the nation, the secret for the future of the course of the society. Let the men see that the efforts of the business, industrial, social service, all in the right mind, will be willing to do their best. The supreme task about society is therefore to teach the social means obligation industry to show that the call to render the social services are truly to the church or the school. Society must exempt men ability to enter the business and industry not for the sake of the money but for the giving of the social services. Society must teach them that they are creating wealth and doing the work and rendering services, not devising some ways often to devise unjust to win money away from the others. Given the Christian society conception of the industry and all the other things following in the due time. 2. There must be supervision of the contractual society of the life and the resources of the nation. We no longer permit the few men to gain control of the means of the production and distribution and the tax of people and form the monopoly price. We cannot allow monopolists, profiteers, exploit the people the necessity to make the child's loft sum or the families feel dear. Some societies, power, privilege, bring us into the reign of society. The society must abolish special privileges, whatever the kind of social, political, economic. It breaks in strange hold of capitalism and labor industrial life. People must regain the lost right of the earth and the resources of the autocrats and the junkers of opposed coming of the social justice would keep them making them down. People down. Several items of the program has been to be mentioned is 1. The natural resources of the nation must be socialized. The earth is the resource that has been given to them by their common home and their heritage. The sum of the resources of coal, iron, water must be held in trust for all and must receive the equity. That means the resource must be taken on the state, national property that they must be supervised and controlled as to prevent the exploration of the people and conducted wholly as a public service. 2. The nationalization control of all water power should be carefully surveyed of the streams, lakes, and country with the knowledge and the possible utilities or possible utilization of waterway. They should have erected a sufficient superpower water station generated to transmit electricity cheap. The rates and power the limit light industries commodities. Although we should be social control of the water irrigation is full of all largest possibility. 3. The socialization of all public utilities, railroads, telegraph, telephones, city light, water, and transportation. This may be affected by the social ownership operation for the full social supervision control. In no case should such utilities be used for the private speculation against the public welfare. A system of rationalizing taxation should equate the taxes prevent speculative hold of land and life of the burden of the family necessity secure the more equitable distribution of the properties. This direction of the principle that thought the effort must move in the time to come. 3. The process of industry must come under the direct supervision and coordinated. The society at the time was which individuals wanted to stand on their feet and secure the justice, depend upon their own strong arm in the progress as a man and develop a society who have long since passed the stage in which the call of the state would recognize the principles of social control. We subsidize the general impartial will, the uncertain and arbitrary personal will. A civilized state that each person contends to having the interest interpreted and measured in the common will and general welfare. In the case of the conflict of will interests, all parties agree to settle the question as issue and an appeal of the common welfare and will. The time has come when the men in the economic relationships must agree to come under the control of society to have their interests interpreted and measured in the common will and welfare. An individual, his or her personal matters, is willing to have interest safeguard guaranteed and make by the state. So many of the social industrial processes must be willing to have the interest safeguarded, guaranteed by the same agency. In modern civilized governing, every person who wanted to escape the attack and secure the rights should think of it as necessary as go armed upon the street. In modern intelligent society, it is not less impeachment of the state the group of worker of the employers who would protect themselves most of the fighting group of the battle for the rights of the latter. Later, no less of the former would show plainly. The society is not fully rational, fully efficient. The state did this duty, and all the members will fully consciousness of the mission. Such things were impossible. It was, in a word, the state must be widened in scope and must be fulfilling its social mission. The state which with the final phrase of the Professor Franz Oppenheimer is most impartial guardian of the common interest, the most represented, most socialized every group, and is the only one agency for all which all the people can operate in the search after social justice, social and progress. The one agency comprehensive enough to consider the interests of all and guarantee justice to each. More and more states must consider the welfare of each and must safeguard the rights of all in determining the level of industrial that must supervise and control processes proceeding of the industry. It must socialize all, promote cooperation for all sakes of all people. One Supreme Court ended the great whole, which implies including the parts in which the common welfare promotes and is good whenever it interferes it is evil. Industrial trade is like everything else, for every sake of the man in society, for their, however, the regard of the man for the sake of industry, for the sake of the profits, all must be changed both in policy and the methods. In fine, there must be socialization, economic process, and interest in the total life of the nation. We must recognize in the facts of the industrial process and the part of social life, and it must be considered that the relation to the whole, and not in the end itself, but it exists for the sake of society. It's necessary for that their process for the units related to the process in which, as a whole, that it must be subordinate, include the community's interests with the common impose of the nation. Socialization industrial, therefore harmonizing industry with the total welfare of society, means the process of industry spirit methods result with the conducted in such a way that promote the total life of the nation. That applies to the whole process, making wealth, controlling distribution, and whatever the process affects the society in any way in every industry, it must be supervised and controlled. It has become evident that the industrial process must be related to other factors. Process must serve the whole welfare of society to make its full contribution to social views. The person must be socialized and learn to take its past society, confirm the regulations, serve its welfare. And so industry and trade must be well socialized, their place of the social order, their methods of result, and conform the social regulations. 4. We must create more just, efficient social order. The present order that failed to at many points it failed to guarantee the right of life of human beings, failed to ensure the equity of the opportunity of all, compelled many to work against the heavy handicaps, and just allowed to exploit the many of its many and deprives the real chance of life. It wasteful to the side of the production, unjust to the side of the distribution. It's inverted the true order, the turn of the values of topsy-turvy. It means of producing things which things are intolerable, which things are only tolerable insofar that they're produced by men, compels great majority of the people beyond the strength and the true opportunity of life, enjoying the work, enables the few to live in the luxury without rendering the services and producing anything of social value. It is said that it is producing things that created wealth made by the few people and then done by this coast, wasted lives and social unrest. The capitalistic systems and monster eating upon the lives of the people. And it's unbrotherly, and on the side of the distribution fills society with the unrest, deprives the men of the revolt. The very idea of the justice proportionally be between the other effort and the reward of the other present system is so commercial that, said the John Stuart Mill, that as to be regulated by the region of romance, if the true is quite the true, when the first said the plain duty for the men of the goodwill. Therefore the creative social order that reduces the pressure upon men to the selfish, unjust, the premium upon justice and brotherhood, they are secure. The more equitable distributions advantage life of the creative. The social order makes a social unity, justice, and fellowship. There create social economic order that shall secure that for all and give to these equitable shares of the common gifts of God. In fine, we create more efficient disciplined social order. Our present individualistic competitive system is not effective, not efficient, as Steinmetz has shown in our country. An individualistic industrial struggle is coming in an industrial organization, everybody fighting against everybody, industrial, publicly and socially, hopelessly. America, either the case of one or more of the world's leading industrial nations, we organize the base system based on the cooperation, not on our competition. But then here's the heart of the problem. This cooperation must be democratic cooperation, disciplined, self-imposed, non-autocratically, as in Germany. No doubt any nation that is willing to accept discipline may pay the price and become effective and strong. But the democratic people achieve the efficiency, discipline, and all the time the remaining of the Democrat. Two possible courses are open to either. There must be such fold in social control over the forces, processes, industry, safeguard, and resources, nation of the welfare of the people. Therefore, they must full assertion of the right of eminent domain and taking over the people, the resources of the earth, of the ownership, the operation of the society of all means of production and distribution. which courses of the people take so much that men prefer the over the one over the other. Men will choose the alternate. One way or the other society will have taking one or must take one taking one and one it must take. Those who fear the latter with the full socialism shall lead the social society to take first course. Those who oppose the full social supervision, control, industry are driven by the people directly in socialism. It will be many long years before the full result of the World War is seen. It will be a long time before the nation can develop a plan to overcome the evils, results, bending of the energies of the work of the human advances. But in certain for that the reason of a long time, Western civilization will be compelled to carry heavy war debts and necessary to enlist all workers to conserve all factory forces as sources of redemption to carry over on the war of nations obliged to conscript wealth and to tax income to draft in every able-bodied person to compel every person to do some serviceable work. For the decades and generations, the nation must, like wartime bases, to meet the interest of the war debt, gradually reduce the amount due to the work society that provided the funds and workers of the progress nation comply to work in the permanent some of the necessary war measures. Society must provide each person carry his share of burden. That there is no idealers living on a society with the tramps and the parasites doing the work. Therefore, every the person's social useful workers receive the direct relation work done. The service is rendered more than the service. The society must, in order to prevent the injustice, one side of the funds progresses and the other, provided the earth resources shall be held in trust of all, that no man group shall make the profit on the special privileges. Therefore, stressful situations will compel societies to socialize a life and to control the industry for the sake of all. For long ago, we ought to have learned the needful lesson of sacrifice and cooperation, and have willingly to serve and seek of common welfare, as all humanity shall be complied to learn the necessity of learning at the fearful cost of the world war. But if the nations learn lesson at this higher price, even the war will not have been in vain. But if the nations refuse to learn the lesson, reject the instructions of heaven, one would almost despair of the world. The type of critical demands of wise and united action progress that have never moved straight line, but men have been taken over the trial of earth. Always, everywhere, progress is result in two sets of forces, those conservative and those radical. If one or the other of these becomes dominant as to break the balance, we have the reaction, the chaos, the danger of the face of the nation in the world of revolutions that become conscious of the power determined to have the large share in the things that affect of the lives. Autocracy and privilege, whether in the state of the industry challenge the most past, no one will suppose that it will be an easier victory in the time that so often before the people would realize the accustomed restraint of the danger to going the extreme to trying to bring them into the millennium, rising a vote and showing the hands. If their reaction against man institutions have limited the wrong them, they are dangers and lawlessness, shakingness of the restraint, bringing the reign of the anarchy. They have been a result of often before that is grave danger at this time. The forces of reaction to conservative never surrounded the privileged willingly. The men are willing to do anything for the people and still, except for the great get of their barracks. The men privileged call their aid of the forces, religion and reaction together make the stand of the disorder and the radicalism and the consequences that this is the last set of the page in the history either empowers and reaction privilege and carry out the suppressed and necessary progress, in which case simply plants the seeds of the bitter struggle and serious oppression. The people break bounds and fall into the revolution and anarchy. In the case of the course of the reform, the delay and defeated, there are alternatives that face the nation of this time. With the road, which road will the nation take? Some of the deeper radical changes that necessary let's omitted that bring them into the past. In large part of the choice of the alternatives in them, which the men, if influence and leadership of the church and state, if they have faith and good courage to accept the challenge to take the challenge of the hour and go forward, humanity may take a long step forward toward the goal. If they misread the signs of the times, if they allow themselves to dominate the force of the reaction it will take. If they lack courage, they do not write in the necessary things that may remain. Great changes becomes confusion, and they will simply provoke men to the extremely radical, perhaps bloody revolution. Reform delayed, instead Burke, and his revolution begun. Men are driven in the revolution, anarchy less by their own reckless leaders, and they will be blind to oppositions of reaction, privilege, and Tsars Nicholas and Piotr, real officers of Bolshevik Russia. The priesthood flattered the nobles of Louis XIV and Louis XV. They said chanting reclaws really caused the reign of terror. Some reforms inevitable necessary. We cannot go back to the older ones. The way out of it is way forward. Let us do the right thing. Do it together. Shall we bring the great new time and at least confusion? Reconstruction of international life.